Good morning, everyone. It's now 6:45, time for Monday Morning Motivation. Yes, I did say 6:45. For those that missed my announcement last week, no, I did not oversleep. Something else that I needed to take care of. So for those that are going to join me, please do hop on. I'll take just a moment or two here for you to jump on if you'd like to. Good morning. Hey, Victoria, how are you? Just taking a moment here for people to get on. Good morning, Miss Patterson. Good morning, Tamika. Hopefully we see more people on this morning as we're providing a later start. Good morning, Jay. Good to see you, man. Hope everything's going well. Looking forward to those who will join us, those that wake up a little later. So just to kind of give you guys some information on what I was doing this morning, our church has a prayer line. And so I was praying on the prayer line this morning. I think that is definitely a worthy cause in pushing this back. So thank you guys for bearing with me there. So going forward, 6 o'clock should be our time. But remember, don't have a schedule that's so rigid that there's no room for flexibility. Good morning, Miss Davis. I see you there. Good morning, Denise. So providing some flexibility. So our nugget for today, let's get started together. Never, or if there is a shortage of time in your schedule, it is most likely due to a time management issue or the fact that there is too many things going on in your life. Okay? And so if there continues to be a issue with time or a shortage of time in your life, it's probably something to do with the fact that you've got too much going on. And so you need to trim some of the fat so that you can focus in on your purpose. Okay. So again, if there's a shortage of time to do things in your life, it is most likely due to a time management issue or the fact that you have too much going on in your life. Okay. So let's move forward together. For those that were with me last week know that we're talking about continuing with what we talked about, and it's redirecting our energy or redirecting our the issues that are going on inside of us. So we talked about dealing with internal conflict, and so now we want to find out how do we redirect that in a way that's going to be beneficial for us. Okay, so stick with me. Before we do that, I want to take some time to review those things that we talked about. So there were 3 important points that if you were watching last week that I want you to have with you this week. If not, it's okay. Go back and grab the first video so we can move forward together. That's going to be very critical. It's critical information that's added to this piece today. Okay. And the first thing is, have you been monitoring the way you feel when you're negative? So last week, were you able to monitor when you were out of sync with your, whether you were out of sync with the way you were feeling when you were going through the day? Were you feeling negative emotions? Were you able to notice that faster than other people noticed that on you? You know, or did someone have to make you aware of that? Okay. The second thing is, did you make a list of those things, or did you write down the happening? And did you also write down the emotion? So I gave the example. You walk into the office. The happening is that, you know, someone tries to undermine my intelligence by trying to show me up in front of my manager, or trying to show that I don't know or understand my job. But I'm very confident in my job. I understand what I'm doing. And so that makes me feel disrespected. So I will write down the happening, and then I also write down the emotion as well. Okay. And then the last thing is to compile this list of things so that as we're here together today, you'll have something to refer back to as we're listening together. Okay. So if you have not done that and you want to go back and capture that first before you listen to this video, please bow out, and then I'll see you later. But if you want to continue, let's continue forward. For those that were watching the post yesterday that I made, first off, thank you to those that commented. I definitely want you to comment on the post because it creates discussion, and I'm able to pull out what it is that you're looking for, even more so than the points that I have prepared, which to me that's much more valuable to give you insights that you're looking for more than the things that I have prepared. Okay. All right, so begin interacting with me Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. I want to know what you're thinking. But for those that did not see the post, I had an image of a wall, a concrete wall that had cracks in it, and you could see the lines. You could definitely see that the wall was in need of repair. And on the right side, you saw a dam, and you saw water coming out of it. And some of you may or may not know, but that was a picture of a plant in which water was used to power the plant. Water was turned into energy. So we know that that's called hydroelectric energy, okay? All right. So let's compare these two different images, all right? And I want you to imagine this with me. So on the left side, we have a concrete wall that has cracks in it, and we have water coming out of the cracks, and it's progressive, and you start seeing more cracks, and you start seeing pieces of the concrete crumble and fall. And then finally, water gushes out of the wall, and the wall comes tumbling down. On the right side, I want you to picture or imagine a plant that is harnessing the power of the water to provide electricity for an entire city, or to provide energy for an entire city. So you have the same flow of water on both ends, but one mechanism was unable to sustain the water, and the other mechanism wasn't trying to sustain the water, but it was trying to use the power or the flow of the water to its benefit, or to the benefit of the people in that city. So as we're talking today about our subject or our topic, I want you to think about it in that perspective, that there are ways to move forward that are destructive, and there are ways to move forward that are constructive, okay? And so here's what I mean by that. Let's talk about our emotions. So when we talk about emotions, or when we hear about emotions, generally the first thing out of somebody's mouth is what? It's negative. It's, you trash your emotions. Don't, feel, or don't trust your emotions, or don't lead your life by your emotions. And there's a lot of truth in that, but I want to say this, first off, emotions are good. For example, the feeling that you get when you help a homeless person find shelter, that good feeling you get, that is good. That's a positive. Or on the other side, maybe the emotion that you feel, or the bad feeling that you get from something you said during an argument, that's also good, because both of them are indicators of things that either you should do or things that you should not do. Okay, so emotions in and of themselves are not bad things. They're actually very useful tools. So when people talk about it from a problem perspective, what is it that they're talking about? It's the fact that emotions can also be misleading, and they're not very trustworthy when it comes to the decision-making process. And here's what I mean by that. So let's look at the negative side of emotions. And so the fact is, or the point is, that our emotions have to be managed. Okay. So here's the piece. Someone may say this: I hate my job. Or, I love snack food. What about, man, I hate this exercise? Or, I know this isn't good for me, but it makes me feel good. Those are all different examples of how being led by your emotions are not good for decision making, okay? So to compare the two, we have on one side where there is definitely positivity when it comes to the emotion. On the other side, there's definitely negativity. So it's not that emotions in and of themselves are bad. It's just that they have to be properly managed, okay? So that's what we're talking about. How do we properly manage our emotions, okay? So this is where we're going to use that list that you made. If you did not make a list, go ahead, maybe think of some of the things that you dealt with this week, or that you have been dealing with in your life, that you know have been a problem for you, that you know is holding you back ultimately from being successful, or that is a hindrance for you, that's slowing you down in being successful, okay? Write those things down and continue with me. So I'm going to throw a few emotions out there that may be on your list. Sad, angry, depressed, unmotivated, or how about disrespected, lonely, furious, or frustrated. Any number of those, and there are variations based on the definitions of those words that can be pulled out, okay? I want to deal with 3 of those emotions, just 3 of those emotions, and you should be able to pull out the meat and apply that into whatever emotion that you wrote down this week. So the first one I'm going to deal with is fear, okay? There's a great author by the name of David Schwartz, and he wrote this book by the name of The Magic of Thinking Big. I know at least one person on this video that's tuning into that book as well. So I don't mind sharing things that I'm reading or things that I'm going through. But back to it, he wrote the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And in this, he talks about fear. And he says the way to conquer fear is to take action. So in other words, if you're fearful of something, the longer you wait to take action, the more fear builds up. And the less likely you are to move forward on that action. Okay? But the sooner you move forward on that action, the sooner fear diminishes, dissipates, is eliminated, fill in whatever word, but fear is no longer a factor in holding you back from taking action, is the point. So within my life, and I'm sure we've all dealt with fear, but I've dealt with fear when it came to speaking before or making presentations. So there are times that I've had to make presentations in front of large audiences or in front of influential and wealthy people. And sometimes it can be intimidating when you're speaking in front of a large audience and speaking to people or men and women of influence. And so there were times that I would sit down to try and put together my presentation, and I would just hear these negative thoughts, things telling me, Norman, what if you mess up? Or what if you forget your line? Or what if you freeze and people just, stop listening? All of these different things. And the thing that I noticed is the more that I began to feed into those thoughts, the more I messed up, the more I forgot lines, and the more I froze. So I had to find a way to get past that. I had to find a way to move forward and not allow that fear to defeat me. And so I began to counterattack or provide a counterattack against those negative thoughts or against those negative words. And here's the sound of my counterattack, okay? It is, Norman, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Just present the information and everything's going to be fine. Or, Norman, God would have not given you this opportunity and the people would have not asked you to make this presentation unless you were ready. So just make the presentation, okay? And so I would say these things to calm myself down and say, you know what, it's okay. I don't have to be fearful. I've got what it takes. And confidence just started building. And the mistakes started dropping off. And confidence produced better practice or produced more confidence within my practice. And guess what? It produced more confidence in my performance, okay? And so the more I had confidence within my performance, the more I had opportunities to speak and make presentations. And guess what? The cycle happened all over again. So I just keep getting stronger and stronger, better and better. Why? Because I take off every opportunity to crush fear and to not allow me to move back or hold back on moving forward on the things that I know I'm supposed to do. Okay? So here are some practical points about fear in the presentation that I just mentioned. I love making presentations in front of my family. I love practicing in front of my family. Why? Because I get to face the largest fear when it comes to the things that I mentioned, messing up, forgetting a line, or freezing up. And because I know at the end of the day, if I mess up royally, my family's not going to leave me, and they may laugh, but they're not going to care that much. And it's a safe environment for me to practice and to face that fear. And here's the thing, I don't wait until the presentation is perfected. No. Why? Because I intentionally want to mess up. I want to forget lines, and I want to freeze. Why? Because I want to get that fear regarding that presentation out of me, and I don't want to allow it to hold me back. So that's a practical tool that you can use when it comes to maybe utilizing your skills or making presentations or overcoming fear. run a mock trial, if you will, with people that you trust, that you don't mind messing up in front of. And if there's no one that you can do that with, practice in a mirror, but graduate to at least maybe a friend or a family member, someone that you can move forward with, okay? I want to deal with the next 2 points or the next 2 emotions simultaneously in a unique way, okay? So firstly, let's deal with disrespect and let's deal with anger. And I want to deal with those 2 jointly. Okay, and here's a scenario. The scenario is I'm a kind person and I feel disrespected by people around me. And so now I decided that I've taken enough and I'm angry, and now I'm going to take action against anyone who disrespects me. Okay? So that's a scenario. So just a kind of unique thing, I'm going to do a little soliloquy here, kind of Q&A. So I'm going to be providing some questions for myself, and I'm going to be answering those questions. So this is the technique that I was talking about last week, and this is how it should go if you're going to do it this week, okay? So let's say I've already got that in the open and I'm frustrated, I'm fuming, and I say, you know what? I just hate when people disrespect me. It makes me angry because I feel that I have something to say. And so I may ask myself the question, Norman, so let me ask you a question. Why is that such a big deal to you? Why is it such a big deal to feel disrespected? Well, I don't know. I just think, respect should go both ways. And, when I've got something important to say, I feel like people should listen. Okay. Norman, let me ask you another question. Why is it so important to you to feel, to feel that what you have to say is listened to? Well, I mean that's with everyone. I mean, if I have to share something to share, I listen to you, and you receive what I'm saying with open arms, and I'll do the same thing with you. I'll listen with open arms. So respect should go both ways. Okay, Norman, let me ask you another question. Why is it so important to you that what you're saying is accepted by other people? Well, I don't know. I guess maybe it's just, if people aren't accepting what I'm saying, I feel rejected. No one likes to feel rejected, right? Right? Norman, can I make an observation? Perhaps the root of feeling disrespected and feeling angry is based in rejection. Would you say that might be a fair assessment? Yeah, that might be fair. Okay, well, let me ask you another question. What if everyone that when it came to topics that you wanted to speak on or something that you had to say, disrespected you or rejected everything that you had to say? Every single person rejected you, and you feel that rejection. What would you do? I probably would just, retreat within myself and just keep to myself and, not deal with anybody. So that way I don't have to be hurt or deal with people rejecting me. Okay. Well, Norman, let me ask you this. That is the worst case scenario that you've just mentioned. Can you think of at least one person that if you're trying to share something with you, they respect you and they don't reject you? Yeah, I think I can think of at least one person. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If you had a list of people that reject you and people that accept you, where would you place God on that list? Would you replace him on the rejection list or acceptance list? I'd place him on the acceptance list. Okay. Well, if you place God on the acceptance list, let me share with you some words from God. Okay. Do you know that he says, I'll never leave you or forsake you? Do you know that it also says, if God is for you, who can be against you? Or what about, I know the plans that I think toward you, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. So Norman, let me ask you another question. Do you trust that those words that God spoke are a reality in your own life? Well, of course, yeah, I believe that. Well, Norman, if you believe that those things are spoken toward you and that those things are reality in your own life, does it really matter if somebody disrespects you? I guess not. Does it really matter if anyone rejects you? I guess not when you think about it that way. Well, Norman, here's something that I would recommend to you. When someone disrespects you and you get angry, don't allow yourself to act out on that anger and frustration. Just go back to your reference point. Go back to your strongest reference point. The fact that if somebody rejects you, they'll never leave you. Or the other side, what about, we talked about the fact that God has a plan and a purpose for you. So if someone leaves you or if someone tries to block you from moving forward, can they? No. It doesn't matter how much someone disrespects you. Doesn't matter. They can try everything in their power. We just said if God is for you, who can be against you? Right? So all these different things are hinged on a strength factor. So people may not know your philosophy. People may not know how you're redirecting this energy, but the way you're redirecting it is by taking something stronger and hinging that emotion to it. Because if you hinge your emotion toward, oh, I feel disrespected, oh, that irks me, oh, that gets on my nerves, then it allows you or gets you into a place of acting out of anger and you have no control. You have zero control. And so now you're taking matters and taking actions into your own hands in a place that may not be appropriate. It may be in the workplace. It may be within the community. It may be within your own home. You may go about acting out, sabotaging your own self because you're not allowing yourself or allowing your emotions to be controlled. So I said a lot of things here that I want to tie up here as we're tying our time up together, okay? The first thing is your emotions are good. They generally indicate feelings of positivity or negativity. They generally indicate whether something feels good or something feels bad, okay? But those emotions have to be properly managed, and they have to be managed by you. The second thing is fear. To conquer fear, take action. And I mentioned fear that I've had and the way that I've taken action by setting up mock situations before I get into the real thing, so that if I experience that within the real thing, guess what? I've already experienced it. I know how to continue talking through something until I can get back to my point. I know how to take a pause until I remember my point and begin speaking. So don't allow fear to hold you back, or guess what? You'll never realize your full potential. And the last thing is you have to hinge your emotions to something that is sturdy. You have to hinge your emotion to a firm foundation. And I've just given to you the firmest foundation that especially I use within my life, that anybody can use within their life. But it has to be, your emotions have to be hinged to a strong reference point, so that when you go into the midst of a situation in which you're tested, or to get outside of that self-control that you have, that immediately your mind is triggered to go back to that. So you say, you know what? I feel disrespected, but I know that God is still not going to hinder me from getting where I'm supposed to get to. God is still going to allow me to move forward in my life. Okay? Now, there's going to be a part 3 to this. Okay? Part 3, and I think the final part. And I'm going to marry these things together. I'm going to marry these 3 things together. I'm going to marry the fact of how to identify how you feel, how to identify the emotions that are going on. I'm going to marry that with what we've already talked about, how to boil down your emotions to the least, your negative emotions down to the least common denominator, and to hinge that to something that is firm or a strong reference point. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and give you the sneak preview of our next conversation, and that is control your perspective by controlling your language. Okay? So again, thank you guys for your time together. We met at 6:45 this time, but I'm going back to 6 o'clock. Yes. So meet me next week, okay? But in the meantime, thank you so much and have a great week. Take care.